3 MPs in a week. That's the tally of the state government's losses at the end of an extraordinary final sitting of Parliament for the year. Ray Hopper defected to join Katter's Australian Party. Carl Judge resigned before he could be expelled after refusing to pledge his loyalty. And Alex Douglas quit after a public disagreement with the Premier about his removal from the Parliamentary Ethics Committee. He's not going quietly. Today, the member for Gavin has made a scathing assessment of Campbell-Newman's leadership style and even flagged the possibility of starting up another political party. He was in his Gold Coast electorate when I spoke with him earlier today. Dr Douglas, on Wednesday night you were in talks with the Premier and you said you'd probably die an LNP member. By Thursday you'd announced your resignation from the party. How did things deteriorate so quickly?
Well, I think that there were a number of things that happened. I still think the most probable thing is I will die an LNP member. I think this current leadership team will be expunged and will go, and then ultimately there'll be some sort of a structural realignment, and we'll resume normality of democracy here in Queensland.
What makes you think the current leadership will be expunged?
I think they've utterly failed, and I think that when the umpire was removed, when it seems that the government has a problem and it can't deal with the problem, so it removes the umpire. And the umpire was me, the chairman of the Ethics Committee, and my job is to maintain the integrity of the process.
Just to be clear, are you saying the Queensland public will vote out the current leadership team, or that the members of the party room will withdraw their support from the current leadership team?
My belief is that the members, when they realise they are facing total oblivion in the near term, and I don't mean the next election cycle, they will leave in a cavalcade. They will have to. The current leadership team have demonstrated they are incapable of passing the critical test. Now, you raised the issue on Wednesday night of what happened. We made an agreement, which is not secret now. I mean, it was clearly, there was no media statements by either side when they walked out. It would end. Well, what happened is the government went into hyperdrive, started doing background briefings of journalists, and could you believe it? Ministers were on the radio the following morning talking about what had gone on the night before, including the Treasurer, who had the courtesy to tell me that he had done so. But he was the only one that did so. If you can't have an agreement and stick by it, and you've just had major questions of integrity raised, then in fact you can't pass your own test of integrity.
The Premier says his team is galvanised and united behind him, though. Is that not the case?
The Premier does not believe in teamwork. The Premier talks about teamwork, he does not practice it. He also talks about loyalty, but he thinks you need to write it down and be pledged and to be terrified into it. You earn loyalty, you earn respect, and you set good examples. He is the first amongst equals. This is not a one-person team directing and saying everything and saying you will agree or else. It doesn't work that way.
Is that how it's working within the leadership at the moment?
Absolutely. The Premier is incapable of understanding what a democracy is. He is incapable of understanding how a Westminster system works, and he's incapable of understanding the difference between the executive, the legislature, and the members of the legislature, who have to represent the interests of their constituents and also other members of the party machine and also members of whatever groups that they represent. And occasionally they will have to stand up for issues that are important to their elected. That's the norm. It's a global system.
Are backbenchers scared to speak out?
Of course they are, but they needed to see this week the example of what the Ethics Committee chairman would do under these circumstances when challenged on issues of integrity. I had to show them what they have got to do. This is what if they were the chairman, that's what the public and I and other members, that's what happens. This is the normal ethics committee type process. And remember, the Ethics Committee is the effectively judge and jury of the Parliament itself. It's a very important job. People shouldn't consider that we all take it lightly.
You're making some very strong criticisms, Dr. Douglas. Are you just a bitter MP who has sour grapes?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I understand parliamentary process, and as I said on Tuesday, I understand that the leader of the House or the leader of government business has the right, with the chairman of committees, if that's the case, to move any person from any committee. But if the reason that has been given that the chair of the Ethics Committee wished to move and the chairman of the Ethics Committee said that he didn't wish to move, and you want to publicly state that he did, and he says that he didn't, and you say that if he didn't want to move you wouldn't move him, and then in my case where I've said, well, I didn't want to move, so therefore I want you to replace me back in that position, and then the Premier says he won't.
Would you join Clive Palmer's party if he sets one up?
Well, it's possible I could, but equally I'd like to think that I could maybe create something that's based on what is really LNP values. I was on the LNP Standing Policy Committee for a long time. I'm a strong believer in having policy developed internally by resolutions of members and then working them through. I can't see anything wrong with that process, and in fact I believe, you know, my wife's a very skilled administrator in party machine. We've got over 30 years experience in that sort of stuff within the party. We could easily do this very quickly and demonstrate that we could run what is an orderly party machine and do so successfully and build it to the point where you could actually win elections.
Is that something you're seriously considering, setting up an alternative political party?
Well, absolutely. Well, my wife is a very skilled politician in her own right. She's currently stepped off the council, but when she was on the executive of the National Party, which then became the LNP, I mean, she's done all the major roles and been the vice president of the party, done membership, you name it, she's done it. And she knows most of the methods. But I want all people to realise that we would be all inclusive. Queensland is a regional economy as much as anything. There's a lot of people who live outside Brisbane who generate the real wealth of the state. It's not to belittle what goes on in Brisbane, but we must be very carefully not to be Brisbane-centric, and we need to realise that, you know, anything that we build builds on and draws in all those types of supports. That's the way you collaborate, and that's the way you drive proper governance.
Dr. Douglas, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Jessica, and thanks to the viewers.